Rob here at etrailer.com, and today you're going to be taking a look at the Roadmaster InvisiBrake second vehicle kit on our 2018 Jeep Wrangler JL Unlimited. One of the main reasons why you'd want a second vehicle kit or a new vehicle kit for the InvisiBrake is if you already had one on a previous vehicle but you sold that and you got a new Jeep, well, you don't need to go buy the whole new system. We can just use the components that come in the second vehicle kit and I'll have everything we need minus a few things. It's going to come with everything you see here on the table, all your wires, a new pulley, clamps, breakaway switch, and all your hoses, valves, and everything else to get it installed. However, like I said, there are a few things that we're going to have to take from our old kit so that we can get this installed properly. There's going to be three components that we're going to need. We're going to need the InvisiBrake unit itself, the patch cord that's going to go in between our towed vehicle and the motorhome, and then we're going to need our cable and cylinder assembly. Now, before you put everything together, you do want to inspect the cable and the cylinder to make sure it's working properly. This one right here is brand new, so we know that there's no problems with it, but you want to check the sheathing around the cable, make sure it's not cracked, broken, and it's not rusty. Here we have our old cable that we pulled out from our first vehicle, and you can see that it was actually rubbing against something. Moisture got in there, and now the cable on the inside is starting to rust. That's a very unsafe thing because there's a lot of pressure that the cable's being put under whenever the brakes are applied, so that rust in there is just going to eventually lead to the cable breaking. So we went ahead and replaced ours. Now, just like the first InvisiBrake that we originally installed in the vehicle, you will have a pulley, except this time, since the second vehicle kit doesn't come with a cable, we have to attach the cable to the pulley. So we'll come to the side that has the cotter pins. We're going to remove the pins and let the pins drop out. Pull those out, then we'll take our cable. We want to go underneath the pulley and then just loop it around the top like that so we have a nice little loop. Then we can take the pins, reinsert them, and once we have those through, put our cotter pins back in. Just want to watch that cable to make sure it's underneath the pin here and it's wrapped around the pulley, and then we'll be able to mount our pulley and mount everything else up. But now that we've seen the components that come in our second vehicle kit, as well as find out the components we need to complete it, we'll show you how we routed everything and how it's hooked up in our vehicle. So we mounted our InvisiBrake control box underneath the rear seat. And then I left all the panels loose so you could see exactly how we routed everything. But you'll notice that I took some wire loom, I wrapped up all my cables and air lines, I took some tape, and I routed it towards the front. And the loom and tape is just going to make it a lot easier to keep everything together because all of our wires and everything is going to have to go at least to the front seat. So here's where all of our wires and cables and hoses came out from, just followed along the threshold panel here. The only one that doesn't go to the engine bay is going to be this really small airline tube here. So we followed this up, we went to the firewall, and there's actually a plastic grommet that's in the firewall. We went and pulled that out so we could run all of our wires through, and we'll put it back in before we finish everything up. But we routed all those wires and hoses to the engine bay. With our 4-pole connector wire, we connected it to our existing towed vehicle wiring, and we just hooked it up color for color. So green went to green, yellow to yellow, brown to brown, and white to white. Now the only difference with the white one is you want to make yourself a little jumper and give it a separate ground close to where we make that connection as well. Then we have our 1/4-inch airline tube, and this is going to be hooked up to our vacuum line. So we took our T, we cut our vacuum line coming directly off the booster. We put our T in using some of the excess hose from our kit to slide over the hard line. We put in a check valve. Now when you put your check valve in, you want to make sure that the black section is facing towards the engine. And again, we just use another piece of hose so that we can attach it to the hard line. That way our 1/4-inch airline taps into our vacuum and we have our T and check valve in place. Then we had our red and black cable. Now this is going to be our power and ground. So we ran it along the edge of the cowl. And we routed it along the cowl over to the passenger side because that's where our battery is. And then we wired in a fuse holder Now whenever you hook this up, you want to make sure that the fuse is not in place until you have all your wires hooked up, and then you can put your fuse in. We'll put our fuse, connected it to the positive post of the battery, and then our black wire was our ground, so we hooked it directly to the negative post of our battery. And right here we have that black jacketed wire that had the 2-prong connector on it, and that's going to be hooking up to our breakaway switch. So we ran our wire along the edge here, came down behind our headlight, came underneath, and we mounted our breakaway switch directly to the front. Now we have our breakaway switch mounted right here in the center, and we got our connection behind the belly pan here wrapped up in tape. That way it'll hopefully prevent any kind of corrosion and also just help keep it together. Now one last wire we have left is our monitor wire. Now this is ran from the front. We followed the same path that our breakaway switch was, but we actually ran it back into the inside so we get the brake signal from inside our Jeep. Our monitor wire is hooked directly to our brake pedal, hooked on a brake switch. That way whenever the brake pedal moves, that monitor light will come on, letting us know that the brake pedal is being activated, not just the braking system. Now you can see we mounted our brake pedal clamp at the very bottom, that way it has the most leverage, and we also mounted our pulley directly to the firewall. Now you see it's kind of at an angle going to the side, and that's specifically for our Wrangler here because it's going to give us the most amount of space and room to get that pulley and cable positioned properly. You can see where we have our anchor point. Now that anchor point is very important when you mount your pulley. You want that anchor point to be nice and straight, and the cable is sitting in the center of the pulley. But if we follow the cable around, you'll see that I put in a big, gentle loop in it, and it comes right to our cylinder. Now in the cylinder, that's where we mounted that last 1/8" air line, goes directly in here. Now if you ever need to take it out for any reason, you see that little gray piece on the cylinder, if we push it in and hold it, we can pull the airline tube out of the cylinder just like that. But if we push it in, you'll feel a little resistance. You want to make sure it bottoms out completely, and if you don't push on that gray ring, it'll keep the airline locked in place. Whenever you're going to put all your panels back, you want to make sure that the cable has a real gentle curve to it. You don't want to cram everything in there to where the cable is going to have really tight bends like this. We just want a big gentle curve, and we can take our cylinder, and I'm actually going to put it underneath the carpet here, right underneath the front seat. That way it's out of the way, but there's plenty of room for that gentle curve. And make sure that our airline's not going to be obstructed, and then we can start putting all of our carpeting and panels back in place. Whenever you do put your carpet back, you may have to cut a section out to go around the pulley and the cable itself, because you don't want that cable to rub on the carpet and cause any damage. So just be mindful of the positioning of everything once you go to put everything back. Now that everything's back in place in our towed vehicle, we went and hooked up to our motorhome, and we can test that our InvisiBrake is working properly. First, we're going to test our breakaway switch. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the pin, and then verify that my pedal is moving and that the monitor light is coming on. So now that we know our breakaway switch is working and the monitor light's working, I want to verify that when I press on the brake pedal that my InvisiBrake is going to come on, just to make sure everything is hooked up properly. So we can see if I press on the brake, the light does come on, and then whenever I let go, the light goes out. So we know everything's good to go. So if you bought a new vehicle or you want to move your InvisiBrake to another vehicle, the second vehicle kit is going to be a great choice. It's going to prevent you from having to buy a whole nother InvisiBrake, but it is going to come with all the components we need to get it installed, minus a few things that we already mentioned. But that'll finish up your look at the InvisiBrake second vehicle kit.